Hello, world. Welcome to Sci-Fi Lab Transmissions. I'm your host, Mitch Schultz. This is episode 0, A Message Within. Thank you for tuning in and joining me on this cosmic journey. Before we get started, I would like to thank our partners and collaborators, Unify Studio and Audi, our entire Sci-Fi Lab team, and our entire community out there listening in. So what is Sci-Fi Lab and what's its mission and vision? We see ourselves, I guess, as a hybrid network of modern seekers, interdisciplinary researchers, kind of exploring the inherent connections between consciousness, nature, culture, and the evolving human cosmology. We blend soul and science, story and practice to support the journey of awareness. And in this process, we want to make conscious practical and social and embodied, and develop tools, language, and community that help us navigate the change process and ground our evolution. We also utilize transformational storytelling with wonder, curiosity, and awe. So let's move in to episode 0's current events in research and development. Our first event is always a reminder to tune in weekly on Thursdays at 4:20 Central Time for the Sci-Fi Lab transmissions. We're doing these once a week, followed with a once a month in-person event in Austin, Texas. Our second event is the Revolution of Consciousness Alpha and Omega Virtual Conference coming in Q1 of 2026 with our colleagues and friends, Steve McDonald and Julia Estara from Audi. Please sign up for more information on any of our upcoming events and to keep in touch with the Sci-Fi Lab team. All right, so our first article today in our R&D section is from Big Think, Pure Awareness and 5-MeO. So this explores 5-MeO DMT. It's a powerful psychedelic found in plants in the Sonora Desert toad. It induces states of consciousness that strip away space, time, and self, leaving only pure awareness. So researchers are suggesting that this is a unique window into the foundations of a consciousness, pure awareness. Different from other psychedelics, it's unlike NN-DMT, which floods users with a lot of vivid visions. 5-MeO dissolves all perceptual and cognitive content. Experience described as whiteouts. So in this, what is pure awareness and what is this consciousness research? For one, this kind of mirrors what Buddhist reports on the minimal mind states pursued through meditation. Philosopher Thomas Metzinger argued it reveals a minimal model of consciousness or awareness without thoughts, emotions, or self. This research started at retreat centers. The fieldwork took place with participants who used 5-MeO while they were wearing EEG caps, with microphenomenology interviews to minimize the distortions of their memories because it can come on quite quick. It's a rapid collapse of sensory in body and field. You go into this immersion state where thoughts vanish, emotions are directly embodied, into this abstract loss of body, cognition, and dimensions. And at the peak, where everything and nothing exist together, 29% reached a full awareness without self, time, or space. That's a pretty high percentage. Now, the neuroscience findings behind this, the EEG showed that there was a reduction in the alpha and the beta rhythms of the brain. Those are linked to fading self and bodily boundaries and supports a deconstructed consciousness overflooded with pure awareness. The psychological impacts for people, many report bliss, peace, and well-being, paralleling advanced meditation states. So this suggests reducing self-focus may ease our psychological suffering. But experiences can also trigger anxiety, and the effects may vary. There are also therapeutic and neurological potential. So 5-MeO promotes neuroplasticity, where it increases the neural spines and the prefrontal cortex, and could have applications in treating mental health conditions tied to rigid self-focus. So the takeaways from this research in 5-MeO DMT Function is a kind of a scientific shortcut to minimal consciousness, giving researchers and participants direct access to states of awareness, usually attainable only through decades of meditation. Now, early evidence suggests that both profound insights into the nature of consciousness and possible therapeutic benefits, but there are also risks and unanswered questions. So since I started my first documentary about NNDMT, which has this sense of flooding your zone, your space with these overwhelming visuals, 5-MeO seems to be the other side of that coin, where everything is stripped and it's just that awareness. So what can this be telling us about consciousness? How information is passed from the micro scale all the way up through to our consciousness and potentially beyond. Okay, moving on, Article 2. This one is from Mind Matters. It's about the conscious universe. So science writer Annika Harris suggests that the self is part of the conscious universe. She suggests that consciousness is fundamental and that the felt experience is an intrinsic nature of everything in the universe. So in this view, what we normally call matter underlies or is built from conscious experience. That implies that consciousness doesn't emerge in brains. It's more basic than that. So consciousness is the only thing that can exist from the inside. Harris argues the only thing which can be known in its own terms, what it feels like from the inside to experience self. All the rest of it, objects, physical events, etc., are outside and are representations of consciousness, stemming from what it is to be conscious. The self is a phenomenon, not an independent object. The self does exist in that each human has a mind, a personal narrative, memories, but it's not a static, separate entity. Harris likens it to something like an ocean wave, a pattern within a larger flow, having apparently distinct shape, but not fundamentally separate. So what's the relational and perspective view of this reality? Because everything is known through felt experience, there is no truly objective outside standpoint. What we see is always filtered through our consciousness. So reality, therefore, is intrinsically relational character. And the implications for this view challenges strict physicalism, the idea that everything is reducible to physical matter plus its interactions, because it says that physical stuff itself is, at its base, experience. So it also raises questions about distinct conscious selves arising from universal substrate of experience. How does the complex structure of the human mind, with memories, identity, etc., emerge in a universe where everything is at bottom felt experience, not top down? She doesn't have all those answers, but it definitely opens up a lot of questions for how we see ourselves and how we see ourselves existing within this conscious universe. All right, Article 3 of Episode 0 comes from sci.org. Culture is overtaking genetics in shaping human evolution, researchers argue. So the general thesis here is the researchers Timothy Waring and Zachary Wood argue that human evolution is undergoing a major shift, and that culture is increasingly a dominant force shaping how we adapt, more so than our genetic evolution. So information that is outside of us, so to speak, is helping us evolve quicker than our biological data that really runs this hardware. So think about that as we go through this. So why is culture gaining dominance? What are they saying here? These cultural practices, so technology, institutions, knowledge, can adapt and spread much faster than our genetic traits. Now, these cultural tools that allow us to kind of solve problems, survive in varied environments, and overcome our vulnerabilities, genes alone might not fix that in a human lifetime. So how is this cultural information speeding that process up and changing us literally before our eyes? So some examples are medical interventions, glasses, surgery, fertility treatments, cesarean sections But over time, more adaptive information is stored and transmitted culturally rather than genetically or biologically. Now, group level dynamics and cultural inheritance. Let's think about how we adapt and how we get our information from our cultures. It's inherently social and kind of a group-based form of existence. What are our norms, our institutions, laws, these shared practices? These all scale up adaptation and individual genetic traits, which individual genetic traits cannot. The evolution of culture tends to push humans more towards interdependence and reliance on large cooperative group systems, education, governance, health infrastructure, and not necessarily on each individual gene, or just a new showing of what those genetic properties may be. So, what is this possible evolutionary transition? The authors of the research say that we are in the midst of a transition comparable conceptually to major shifts in biology. For example, the transition from single cell organisms to multicellular organisms. Here, the shift is one where adaptive change is stored and inherited, culture versus genes. So if this trend continues, future human evolution might be less about genetic changes and more about the enhancements, modifications, and innovations in a culture. Now, what could that look like in 10, 20, 50, 100 years from now, considering how quickly things have changed over the last 20 to 30 years? So the caveats here, what are the implications? Now, one thing to note, the authors are not suggesting that culture is automatically better or progressive. Cultural evolution can produce bad outcomes. It has trade-offs as much as benefits. They propose that this hypothesis is testable, so it's not going to be just some philosophical thing that is thrown out there, but there are ways to look at the information architecture of what's going on and its influence on our biological selves. So they're building more models and long-term data collection strategies to measure how fast this cultural transition is happening. And more broadly, this shifts how we think about human evolution, not purely as a matter of biological or genetic change, but one deeply shaped by what we learn, what we build, what we share, and how we govern. It suggests future human success may hinge on cultural systems. How well societies manage health, education, technology, institutions, cooperation, than the genetic advantages. It also raises philosophical and ethical questions. What does it mean being human if cultural inheritance becomes more central than the genetic inheritance? How do we ensure cultural evolution is beneficial for as many people as possible? So let's move in to episode 0's current events in research and development. Our first event is always a reminder to tune in weekly on Thursdays at 4:20 Central Time for the Sci-Fi Lab transmissions. We're doing these once a week, followed with a once a month in-person event in Austin, Texas. Our second event is the Revolution of Consciousness Alpha and Omega Virtual Conference coming in Q1 of 2026 with our colleagues in It must be stated, whoever I am, I was born and raised in a young Western democracy within what is usually described as a middle-class family. From a world perspective, I sure am fortunate and privileged to be able to spend time and energy on this project. I am certain I am unable to perceive life except from my own current point of view and subject to my own bias, perceived or not. However, curiosity has helped me in understanding the questionable nature of many, if not all, of my assumptions about the world I live in. How at the core, knowledge and culture are essentially agreements to which we agree, ideally. And yet, there are so many cultures, which means there are so many different ways of perceiving and inhabiting this world. While it is natural to think that our culture is as obvious, and we Westerners are very good at it, personally, I do not believe that to be the case. I think diversity of cultures is desirable, like plants and other animals. But how can we live in accord in the present world? Why is it so important to protect national identity in a world where you can eat sushi, hamburgers, pizza, or kebab in all major cities of the world? Where martial arts, soccer, and art museums are borderless? Where in every major city in the world, you can find people from almost anywhere on the planet? We may be bound to face each other. So how can we make this a mutually enriching experience? Disclaimer. This work is a work of friction. Not scientific, though heavily inspired, many references are objectively oversimplified. Not religious. Some less obvious overlapping may occur. Not a dagger. It's not supposed to hurt or insult. Not a pillow. It does not solve anything. The author claims no authority on any of the subjects presented. If anything, this is an exploratory work. Navigate at your own peril. Who are you? Who are we? Reject your convictions. For I was conscious that I knew practically nothing. All is seed. The magic is in the questions. If you can question, you can choose. We are not bound by tradition. We can aspire to all. For me, it is okay. As long as I can breathe, as long as my heart is pumping, as long as I can express myself. As the story goes, once upon a time, nothing existed. How could nothing exist anyway? No stars, no planets, no plants, no animals. We humans are animals. No cultures, no countries, no you. And then, bang, big bang. Was it God? Was it matter? Does it matter? Whatever happened, you are here now. Yep, you've heard this before. Yesterday is history, tomorrow is a mystery, and today is a gift. That's why they call it the present. We are all alone with everything we love. And since you are here, congratulations. You are still alive. You are unique, special. So is everyone else. Never forget that you are one of a kind, and never forget, no matter how overwhelming life's challenges and problems seem to be, that one person can make a difference in the world. In fact, it is always because of one person that all the changes that matter in the world come about. So be that one person. You are matter, temporarily with benefits, a cosmic matternaut, an adventure of a lifetime. It's you, made of cosmic matter, plus time, changing through cosmic matter, plus space moving through cosmic matter. Lost in the atmosphere, I wait the night so the stars may light my way.